oh look, it's another overdue training, and if I don't get it done on time, I'll be called a delinquent on some email that's sent to my supervisor. Why are there so many mandatory trainings at all times from all of our hospitals? Usually when I pose a question or an opinion on social media, I get a bunch of comments on both sides of the argument. Whether it's about tort reform, COVID policies, or even virtual residency interviews. But recently, I made a post on Instagram about how pointless I felt all these mandatory trainings are, and I got over 200 comments, both on the post and in direct messages, with not one person supporting the barrage of mandatory trainings we're expected to do. And it got me thinking and wanting to do a little bit of research. So I did a little investigating. I logged on to the Learning Center at one of my hospitals to look at all the mandatory trainings that are required. And there are 12 listed right here, ranging from trainings in compliance and diversity to equity, inclusion, privacy, security, cybersecurity, HIPAA, professionalism, and preventing harassment. And I'm navigating all over the site, looking at the learner dashboard, the library, the e-catalog, and I can't actually find who or what institution, agency, or governing body is mandating these trainings. I started clicking through all of them and reading at the top, and the only one to provide that information was the harassment training, which is mandated by Title IX and the Clery Act, and in California meets a legal requirement set forth by Assembly Bill 1825. Under AB 1825, quote, employers that do business in California and have 50 or more employees, as well as public employers, must provide at least 2 hours of sexual harassment training every 2 years. I support the underlying mission. I stand by Title IX, but some of these other modules seem to have unclear associated agencies. Is it another legal requirement? The Department of Public Health? The hospital itself? Maybe they all just boil down to accreditation and funding. Our good friends at the Joint Commission could also be behind some of the trainings that directly involve patient safety, such as pain medication management, fire evacuation, workplace violence, or infectious disease control. You may recall I recently made a video about the Joint Commission and whether or not their protocols, which are needed for accreditation, are actually backed by evidence. I asked a similar question here. Do these trainings affect outcomes? And I could not find a single study saying that they do. Now, this doesn't mean that learning about diversity, cybersecurity, or HIPAA aren't important. It just means that there might be a more optimal way to teach and train these topics rather than these trainings that check some arbitrary box. And the other question I have to ask is who is actually diligently doing these trainings? I mean, there are some that you have to read, there's some that you can read and then skip to the quiz section, there's others that are videos that you can skip, then there's those really tricky ones, videos that you can't skip, and if you open up another browser, it freezes the training, and we have dozens of these to do, in addition to all of our other non-patient care related tasks. If we have good evidence for anything, our doctor brains motivate us. Take patient handoff or sign out, for example. I find it boring, tedious, sometimes too long. But efficient sign out, such as using the IPASS method, was recently shown to cut adverse events in half. That's motivation. We need this type of data with these trainings. At the very least, there should be a conversation about if we, healthcare professionals, actually find these trainings useful. Mandatory trainings like CPR or advanced life support, that's a given. I also read 2 studies about how workplace violence training was well received by nurses. Nurses felt more prepared to both prevent and manage violent incidences at work after the trainings. But it's hard to justify the time it takes to complete all the other ones, especially when you take them so many times for so many different sites, and you can't just test out of a module for good and you're possibly not learning anything. Also, why can't there just be a centralized site that you go and you do all your trainings needed for compliance and accreditation, and every place that you work at can just go and look there to make sure you're up to date? But that would make too much sense. The modern, complicated, burnout machine that is healthcare does not go in that direction. But enough ranting, I want to hear what you all think. Do you actually find mandatory trainings useful? Do you think they improve outcomes or prevent harm? And be honest, do you actually do them or do you just flip through them? Comment below.